Skaggs. Thank you. Beautiful crowd, beautiful crowd. So guys, if you don't know a little bit about me, for 21 years I was a high school sports writer for the San Antonio Express News and a couple of other publications. And after a while I started to feel like, I was getting pretty good at it. Until one night, or one day, about 15 years into my career, when I was asked to cover a professional basketball game. And I suddenly turned right back into a bumbling, stumbling idiot. I showed up at the arena way too early. I didn't have my tape recorder. And believe me when I tell you this, I said all the wrong things to all the right people. This was in the spring of 2003. I was at my cubicle, I was finishing up the story about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my editor suddenly shows up at my cubicle, and he's got this look on his face, like I need help. See, apparently what had happened was the Miami Herald had called. And because of some weather in San Antonio, their NBA beat writer couldn't get here, and so now they no longer had someone to cover the Spurs Heat game for them, and now they need someone to cover the game for their newspaper. And again, my editor is looking at me. So, I had some plans for the news. I'll have to ask my... Duh, of course I'll do it, right? So, as my editor started to walk away, I started thinking, oh yeah, all right, I've been called up to the pros. But then he picked up the phone and he started dialing. And I started thinking, oh crap, I've been called up to the pros. You see, because, I started to think about it, and the voice of Quint from Jaws, like I could hear his voice in my head. And he was saying, Chief, this ain't gonna be no Boy Scout trip. Hope you brought your rubbers. You see, because when you cover high school sports, you talk to 17-year-olds, they're anxious, they're eager, they think you're a celebrity. If you interview them in front of their friends, it's the greatest thing in the world. And if you should happen to actually quote them in the newspaper, they'll go out and buy like 212,000 copies. See, but this was the NBA. This wasn't going to be an easy... There's pressure involved here. So, this ice storm is starting to get a little worse. I live way out by UTSA. The arena is right down Houston Street. So I started to think, maybe I should just go straight over to the arena. I mean, that's probably what all the other reporters are going to do, right? Right? So I get to the arena at 5 o'clock, and I'm the only reporter there. And the PR guy, he's, inside, and he's giving me my press pass, and he literally was going, but he didn't want to say anything, So now I'm starting to get a little more nervous. And, I'm pretty sure he thinks I'm an amateur. So I sat around in that arena for about an hour, and let me tell you, the AT&T Center is a vast, big place when you're by yourself and you have plenty of time to think about what you've gotten yourself into. After about an hour, finally another reporter shows up. It's a guy named Chris Perkins. I worked with him at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I know this guy. He's now at the Fort Lauderdale News. But more importantly, he knows everything there is to know about the Miami Heat. And he has a good relationship with their coach. A legend, if there ever was one, a guy named Pat Riley. I mean, if you don't know, he invented an offense called Showtime, if that tells you anything about his accomplishments. So Perkins is looking at me, and I'm his competition because I'm working for the Miami newspaper, but we're friends. So he kind of gives me this look like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to help Skaggs out on this one tonight. But not before I go to the buffet table and load up. Which of course, again, leaves me standing by myself to think about what's going on in my life. And I'm right there in the tunnel. And it's right about this time that the first couple of basketball players start to show up. Not the Miami Heat players that I'm covering, but the Spurs. Okay, here he is. The first one out on the court is Steve Kerr, 6'4", wearing his basketball uniform, ready to go and show the other team how to make some cheddar. Right? But the weird thing is, he's sitting there chatting up all these $10 an hour arena employees, and wow, that's fascinating, you know. And I guess that I kind of wandered a little bit too much into his peripheral, because now he's looking at me, and I'm wearing a credential, so he thinks that I'm somebody important. And he reaches out his hand, and he goes, oh, I don't think we've met before. I'm Steve Kerr. And I'm thinking like, yeah, I fucking know. But I'm also thinking at the same time, don't say anything stupid. Don't say anything stupid. Don't say anything. Wow, Steve, you're really tall. Don't. But Steve was really cool about it, because at that exact moment, Tim Duncan just happened to walk by. Steve looks up at Tim, looks down at me and goes, yeah, now you know how I feel. So now I'm starting to get even more anxious, because, again, Kerr was really nice about it, but he probably thinks I'm an amateur. And finally the game starts. And what you really need to know about the Miami Heat was that at this time, they were not a very good basketball team. They didn't have any stars. And at one point, the Spurs were beating them by 33 points. So now, I've got to try to write an interesting story for the people of Miami about this horrible basketball game, this horrible basketball team on an East Coast deadline. This is like about the worst situation you could possibly be in. Perkins is sitting next to me, he's cracking jokes, and it's helping, but only a little bit. Only a little bit. Finally, the game ends. Now we have to go and do interviews. So Perkins and I as we're walking over, we get to the locker room. And as soon as we get there, we can see these other reporters that are already there, and they're just as wide-eyed as can be. Because Riley is in the locker room, screaming the F word, just F this, F that, throwing a tirade, and then all of a sudden you hear, boom! Like this, something like a metal chair or something, just boom, right off the wall. And then silence. Okay, so as reporters, we're not allowed to go into the locker room until the PR guy tells us that it's okay. So we're all standing out there like, what the hell are we going to do here? Got a deadline coming up? We don't know what's going on inside. We're not allowed to go in there. I think over to Perkins and I was like, hey, I think he might have murdered somebody. Perkins, I've never been through this before. I don't know. And Perkins just looked at me like, okay, maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he did murder somebody. So after about the longest 5 minutes of my entire life, the door finally opens. And there he is. Pat Riley. Got the slick back hair, looks like Gordon Gekko from Wall Street. And he's just looking at us. Just daring somebody to ask him the question. And I'm not going to do it, right? You're trying to get through all of this. So I'm nudging Perkins. Hey, Perkins, ask him a question. Ask him a question. Because nobody else is going to do it. So finally, Perkins kind of steps up a little bit out of this group of people and says, Riles, are you okay? Because I've never seen you like this before. And Riley, the ever consummate pro, looks away from us, looks back at us, kind of acknowledges what we're talking about, like pointing at the locker room, and he goes, pulls his tie like Rodney Dangerfield. That's just business. What can I do for you, gentlemen? Like, first of all, you can buy me a brand new pair of underwear because you guys know, right? That's my pants. So now it's getting really late. We interview Pat Riley, we go inside, we talk to some of his players, and one of them says something about the Spurs being the Cadillac of the NBA. And that makes me think, that makes you guys the Model T. Now I've got an angle. But what I really need is more time. Because an awful lot of it's gotten away from me. And some people are counting on me. So I scurry back to the media room, way down in the basement of the AT&T Center. As soon as I walk in the door, I see all the other guys that have been doing this forever, the pros, and they're already halfway done with their story. And I've got to move. I really got to move. But first of all, I have to make a decision. See, am I going to call out Pat Riley for his behavior? He's goddamn right I am. I'm going to call him out for his behavior. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So I get on this and I start, and I'm just banging away on the typewriter and my computer, and I'm just making it into a trampoline. I got it all in there. The Cadillac angle, the tirade, it's all there. Chock full of typos, but it's fucking there. And I'm ready to go. And little do I know, because I didn't have the cell phone with me, that they're calling my wife every 5 minutes from Miami going, have you heard from him? 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 And back in the arena, I can hear this guy over my shoulder say, hey, something happened here. I don't know what's going on. Good thing I sent my story because my computer's messing up. And that was right about the time I went send. And nothing happened. Oh crap, dial it up again. Send. Nothing happens. Blue screen of death. And now, I've got to call them. What do you want me to do? And here's what they tell me. It's too late. They've already decided to run an AP story with just basic information that a guy across the room from me wrote in about 10 minutes, just has basic facts, no perspective. It's just something to fill the space. See, this isn't a good reflection for me or them or my employers. So the next day, I'm back in my cubicle and I'm talking to anxious 17-year-olds that are just happy as hell to talk to me, just happy as hell to chat with me. And I'm pretty sure that no newspaper on the face of the earth, mine or at least the Miami Herald, will ever ask me to cover a professional basketball game again. You see, because of the ice storm, I got this opportunity to prove to any critics that think covering high school basketball or high school sports is not as important or can't be done or isn't a big deal. I got a chance to prove to all of those critics that at least for one day I could do the job as well as anybody, and I could handle any situation. But because of the ice storm, the only person I ever got to prove it to was myself. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Thank you. My name is Tim Skaggs.
Thanks, Tim.